So anyway, the first thing is that going into this whole thing, I knew pretty much nothing about the Apple Vision Pro besides just it existed. I mean, I saw that one video of that guy walking out of a Cybertruck with him, but that was about it. I mean, a lot of people saw that and how much of like a tool he kind of looked like. So I really knew very little about this. I don't own any Apple products, and I really didn't care. I don't care about following virtual reality, augmented reality, whatever you want to call these type of things. I don't really care about that. I'm not interested in it. I don't own like a VR headset or anything like that at all. So yeah, but I did want to mention it though because it's been in the news and it's pretty funny. So the way I describe the Apple Vision Pro for those who don't know is, I mean, instead of explaining what it does, I think it'd be easier to explain what it's not supposed to do. Because when I first heard of it, I just thought it was some really advanced VR goggles, like like the Oculus Rift or I know there's that Google brand of VR glasses or whatever you want to call them that some people know of. So I didn't really know what to call it, to be honest. But yeah, it's basically a pair of, they can do VR related things, like you can watch movies on them, play games on them, stuff like that. But I guess it's also similar to what, if anyone remembers the Google Glass from like 12 years ago now, where it's supposed to be like you wear them all the time and they interact with society in a different way because of them, because you can pull up maps, you can pull up videos on the side, I don't know, write emails. I've seen people writing like with an invisible keyboard basically with them, so write things down, like write emails, write on Google Docs, stuff like that. Search the internet with them. So that, I guess they're supposed to do a lot. They're pretty much, I mean, that's kind of why it's hard to even explain what they are, because they just do so much, it seems like. And that I probably shouldn't phrase like that, because that sounds like I'm doing some sort of advertisement for them. They can do so much. They can do everything. You should buy them right now. No, by the end of this segment, you'll know that's not what we're doing here. But anyway, I was reading an article, and that last Friday, according to Bloomberg, the 2-week return period explained. The 2-week return period expired for the very first Vision Pro purchases, and a surprising number had turned in their headsets. And in addition to that, quote, larger locations have seen as many as over 8 takebacks in a single day, which is apparently just about above average from what they consider to be average returns for these types of products, and above average. So some of the common complaints from at least the consumers seem to be that the device is too heavy, headache-inducing, and uncomfortable. The lack of applications and displays have too much glare. So, yeah, I mean, I think, when you look at the design, you can just tell by looking at it, a thing looks heavy. Because I was kind of wondering when people were walking around with it, how people were going to do that. And I was also wondering if it was going to be a problem because there's kind of some thickness to it from where you put your eyes to where, the device ends. And so that made me think, because when you put on like a pair of, let's say like goggles or something, sometimes there's some space where, you're closer to some things than they appear because where the glass ends further in front of you, or the product ends further in front of you. So I was going to wonder, can people even wear these outside and there's any danger to it? I don't believe there is, but yeah, I'm not really surprised they're too heavy considering what they look like. And I was a little bit surprised when I first heard it before I really thought about it though, just because, I looked at the thing and it was kind of funny how they have so many straps on them. It looks so much like they're doing everything they can not to fall off your head, because they have the, around the back of the head strap that goggles have, or, some glasses have, I guess. And then they have one that goes from the front of the device to the back of your head, so it goes around the top of your head. They're really doing everything they can to make sure it doesn't fall off, which, I mean, considering how heavy that might be, I guess that's not surprising. The other headache-inducing is also something I'm not really surprised by, although I guess it depends how often are you really wearing them, because some of that has to be blamed, I guess, a little bit on just human beings, because I feel like it's just common sense if you put like bright lights, a projector screen, or not a projector screen, but you know what I mean, like a phone screen basically, that close to your eyes, it's going to hurt your eyes. I mean, we hear all these studies about using your phone at night, in bed or whatever is bad for you, or, crap like that. So you'd think with knowing that people would kind of know not to wear them all the time. I don't know how often people are wearing them, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Apple faithful are just wearing them all the time, except for when they're sleeping or showering. Although we'll get to the point where they're not taking them off for that either. But yeah, I was wondering that, would this really induce headaches? And apparently it does, and I'm not surprised. And, there's a lack of applications as well as the final point that I was going to mention there, which is that I'm a bit surprised by what that would mean, because I thought, movies, Google Maps, like keyboards, emails, doing all that stuff, that's a lot of stuff you can do on it. I mean, I know keyboards, when I mentioned that kind of fits into a few things, but being able to use like the invisible keyboard or whatever, which I've seen people do, I thought there'd be a lot of applications for it. I guess not. But what people might mean is there's a lack of specific applications for it, and we'll get into that later, actually. But, when giving my 2 cents, not looking at the complaints really, I mean, first off, the thing costs $3,500, which, I mean, I guess I'm not surprised by what they claim this kind of thing can do. But, I mean, that's way too much for someone to pay for something like this. As far as I'm concerned, at least, I would never pay that much. And again, I barely even have $3,500, so maybe I shouldn't comment on this, but I would be surprised that pretty much anyone would want to spend $3,500 on it. And I never spent that much on a piece of technology, period. I mean, I have devices that put together can already do everything that it can do. So I don't know where they get. I guess $3,500 is just how much they figure it should cost for them to recoup the cost of manufacturing. But I don't know. I think that most people would look at that as that's kind of just too much for something like this. And the thing is, when you put these electronics on your face, I mean, that just to me sounds like you're aiming for some sort of eye strain or pain, or it's just a ridiculous idea, because the comparison I've seen only a little bit, and I thought I'd bring it up here because I'm kind of surprised more people haven't made this point, that it is basically what the Google Glass was supposed to be back in the day, 12 years ago, what that was supposed to be. And I feel like trying to push for electronics you wear on your face outside of the home is a bit ridiculous, because all we really have for that right now is like VR headsets, and those are fine because those are things those are like video games or maybe watching a movie or something. I don't really know if you can. I don't have a VR headset either, but they have applications that are mostly to be used in private or on a solo experience. Trying to push people to do it outside just looks ridiculous. And the Google Glass, which was much more, I believe, subtle, if that's the term you want to use, in terms of what it was supposed to look like when they were pushing it. I don't really think it ever sold much besides prototypes, but it looked way more, inconspicuous. And if that makes any sense to wear, I mean, you're going to get beat up if you wear those, but, they were a lot smaller. They kind of looked like just nerdy looking normal glasses. And that's kind of partially why, 12 years ago, I didn't think those would catch on, because I was skeptical, even, when I was just a kid, that technology had come far enough that it could, produce that in those little tiny glasses, they could produce everything like the ads were making it look like they could. And the Apple Vision Pro, I think it can do it. I don't think there are any complaints that it can't do things that people thought it could do. But the problem is, you need this thick VR looking headset, and you have to wear it around in public for it to even work. So, that's concern number one. And moving beyond that, I think it's just the thing about these VR headsets that I don't think works outside of, the purposes of playing video games or watching movies, is that it seems almost to eliminate multitasking in terms of, I brought this up earlier, but everything, I mean, unless I'm missing something, pretty much everything this can do, or these VR type headsets can do, we already can do just in different devices. Like, for example, maybe, typing emails. It's a great example, actually, because I saw this video of someone who was writing an email at like a coffee shop on the Apple Vision Pro. Well, the thing is, you could just bring your computer. You can type it out right there, and you can pull something else up on the side while you're doing it. You can pull up a YouTube video, or you can read an article. I mean, it's hard to be reading an article while typing something, but hypothetically, you can do it. I mean, I don't believe the Apple Vision Pro can. And why? The other thing that it eliminates, not even like computer multitasking, but just human multitasking in general, because how are you supposed to look around and look at the scenery? I mean, I know if you're just in like a coffee shop, maybe it's not that impressive, but how are you supposed to look around or get a good view of your surroundings when you have this big ass headset on your head that's just showing an email that you're typing? I think that kind of just goes to show that probably wouldn't work. But yeah, I mean, I just thought that it's, it just seems to be overly complicated for almost no reason in terms of eliminating something that all these devices already can do and people have enjoyed being able to do with them. So yeah, it just seems like a bit of an oversight on that one. But anyway, moving on from that even, I think that the question is, what is even the practical application of a device like that? Because do people really need to be looking at maps when they're walking down the street, for example? That's one of the things that I guess they can do that is supposed to be impressive. That you can look at a map, basically a Google map, up at your face while you're walking down the street without pulling at your phone. Is that really the practical application of this thing's going to change the world? I mean, because what can it do? Like, is there anything that it can do that's actually helpful to society anyway? I mean, I don't like when people, take a dump all over any sort of new device that's made just because the only purpose it serves is recreational and no practical application to society. But, how is it supposed to change the world or help the world, All it's going to make you do is look like a dick when you're walking around the street with it. And that's kind of the other thing. I think that these devices can never completely catch on. Well, besides the fact that no one can afford them, but they're never going to completely catch on with all of the general public because people don't want to be wearing something that makes them look that stupid or in public. Because yes, there are people who are going to wear an Apple Vision Pro out in public, and you should be ashamed of yourself if you're one of those people. But partially because, well, some people just do it because they want to prove that, look, I have $3,500. Look what I spent that money on. But also some people do it because they just do think it's the future. But no, I don't. I think most people won't because you just look ridiculous wearing it around in public. You look like someone, because VR has this reputation of you're wearing to like shut the outside world out. You just look like someone who's ignoring people in society, being antisocial. And if that's fine, that's what you are, I guess. But most people don't really want to look that way when they're walking around in public. So I don't think this will ever catch on because of the curb that from people who they want to be in this advanced technological future society, but they don't want to look like idiots walking around with this technology. If someone puts it on and they look like an idiot, then that's kind of strike one where you should know this is not going to catch on, at least in the way where I want it to. So I think they really need to redesign these things. I think the Google Glass itself was already pushing it, but with Apple Vision Pro, which is way more bulky and way more drawing attention to yourself, I don't think it's going to catch on. I don't think there will ever come a point, in most like sci-fi movies and TV shows, where it takes place in the future, they sometimes incorporate like glasses or visors or whatever where they can pull up, maps or information or whatever, like kind of like Iron Man and what he's supposed to see. But we'll never get to that point as a society because people just don't want to look as ridiculous as realistically those things will make them look. I mean, what they really need is a bunch of celebrities to come out and just start wearing those in public. When they do it, maybe people who want to think they're celebrities when they're not will start doing it. But I think that's the only market we can really appeal to. And one day that might be the majority of the world. But for now, no, I don't think there's going to be a point where people want to, sacrifice their dignity to get eye strain and look at Google Maps that they can pull up on their phone. So, overall, my final point I'm making here is that I think we just kind of need to give it a rest on these VR glasses you're supposed to wear in public. Because you either look like a weird nerd or someone who's just asking you to get beat up. Or both, or someone with more money than brains, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Or sometimes not even as much money as brains. And they just want to spend the money that they don't have on a product like this. So, until they invent them to actually have a practical application, I think we should just give it a rest on these things. And the Apple Vision Pro, I don't think they're going to fail, because unlike the Google Glass, these have an application where you can use them as like a VR headset, I guess, when you're at home. So they have that, which, is something of a purpose. But for now, in terms of the general public all walking around wearing these things, and if people think this is the future, I regret to inform you, I think you're off by a little bit.